As I share my story, I think about the quote by Catherine Center. You have to be brave with your life so that others can be brave with theirs. My experience with depression and anxiety began at a young age. Unfortunately, I have had a series of traumatic events in my life that have impacted me greatly. And during those times, I didn't have the resources to cope. I have a loving family, friends, and since college have been in therapy fairly consistently. Yet I have never been free of those heavy feelings. In January 2018, I became ill with what started as an infection in my small intestine. This took months to properly diagnose, and as the months went by, I developed more and more symptoms that no doctor could seem to piece together. My life quickly went into a downward spiral. My days were filled with going to appointments, obsessing about symptoms, panicking that I would not get better, and crying myself to sleep every night. In the summer of 2018, I took medical leave from work, and it was during this time that I found my way back to church after taking a 12-year hiatus. Despite being raised in a church, I can say that it was just last year that I finally developed a relationship with God. For the first time in the midst of all of this chaos, I realized that I didn't have to go through this journey alone. As the months went by, the symptoms continued to worsen, as did my depression and anxiety. On December 31st, 2018, I cried myself to sleep, crying out to God for grace, mercy, and healing. The next morning, New Year's Day, I awoke and decided something had to shift. A friend had given me a new devotional, and the focus of January 1st was Romans 12:2. It was about allowing God to renew your mind. Over the next several weeks, I prayed and prayed, yet my mind was not miraculously renewed, nor my symptoms healed. In the past, I would have turned away from God in anger that He has all this power yet isn't coming through. Yet at this point in my life, I realize that things aren't that simple. We do live in a fallen world, and for myself, I believe that I had to lose a life I thought I loved in order to get a new one. For 20 years, I had struggled with anorexia and bulimia. When I got sick last winter, I stopped all of those behaviors. After 20 years, I just stopped. This was something I never thought would be possible. Yet I found myself wondering if it was worth it. I was free from my eating disorder, but now so physically ill, I literally just dragged myself from work to home and home to work. I had so much sadness at the lack of life I had. In 2017, I had run a marathon, and now I could barely get through a workday, let alone socialize with my friends or spend time with my family. There was no joy in my life. My eating disorder was gone, but the anxiety and depression still clung tightly. Given that my physical symptoms were still so persistent, I continued to see doctor after doctor. I had, by this point, seen 3 psychiatrists, and they all agreed I was depressed, which they understood given my poor health. And I was anxious, but they offered no solutions. At this point in my journey, I had developed a relationship with God where I talked to Him daily. I was praying for clarity, direction, and wisdom. I finally recognized that I was so frantic in trying to fix things that perhaps I wasn't listening. After a short time, God led me to a brain retraining program, which focuses on healing people from chronic illness by healing their brains, which have been impacted by trauma that often manifests through physical symptoms. I was skeptical at first, yet I read story after story of people who had healed using this program. The first part of my work was to acknowledge all of the negative thinking patterns I had. I then had to learn to redirect and rephrase each of those beliefs. I had to make an effort to incorporate more joy and laughter into my life. I had to choose to seek out and take in the good, knowing that the bad was still there, but the less I focus on it, the less it grows. This is hard when you are sick and depressed. Yet each day I pray to God to continue to give me the strength and perseverance He has given me every day of my life. I pray to Him when I start to experience fear or doubt, recognizing that this is not helpful or truthful thinking. I also thank God daily for all of the support and encouragement He gives me through the people in my life. I still need help noticing when I'm drifting back to old thought patterns, or when I'm obsessing about a symptom, or when I'm just not laughing enough. That may sound silly, but you don't realize how much you don't smile or laugh until you start to. At work yesterday, one of my patients was smiling, and I asked him why he was so smiley. And he looked at me and he said, "Well, because you are." And I thought to myself, I am definitely making changes. Where am I today? I'm still a work in progress. Are my physical symptoms gone? Not yet, but I believe that they will be. Is my anxiety gone? Not yet, but as I've learned, our brains have neural pathways which have developed over years, so it will take more than a few weeks or months to rewire them. Is my depression better? Yes. I now feel hope and optimism. I do notice I'm smiling more because I choose to. I choose to take 10 seconds and notice how good the fresh spring air feels, or how amazing the first minute of a hot shower is in the morning. I also choose to continue to take time daily to be quiet and listen for God. I have spent so many years being angry at Him. It's so nice to have this relationship where I know He loves me and has me by my right hand. I visualize this every day.